Well, I guess we can go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Bailey, do you want to do a roll call?
Yep. Commissioner Archer, Commissioner Lord,
Here.
Commissioner Finneman,
Here.
Commissioner Hustick,
Here.
Commissioner Huntush,
Here.
Commissioner Roberts,
Here.
and Mayor Winnick.
Here. Let's get everybody to rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll look for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Agenda approved. Now the minutes from May 14th. Look for a motion on those.
I'd move to approve.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstain.
Aye.
One abstain. Dan, can you take us through the work plan update?
Yep, President, members of the EDA, for the past few meetings, we've been kind of working on developing a work plan for 18 to 20 for the Forest Lake EDA. Included in your packet is kind of the latest version of that. We kind of went from initially just kind of starting out with very high level, what do we want to look at, and then kind of looking at developing action items and deliverables for each of the steps. So tonight we kind of have the close to final work plan for your review and consideration. Part of this exercise, we want to take it through a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, just to make sure that we're not leaving anything out and kind of making sure that what's on the plan is what the EDA does want to work on for the next 2 years. I think the other thing to kind of keep in mind too is to make sure what's on the plan is achievable. You know, we want to make sure that we kind of have some steps that we can kind of go back through and say, you know, we achieve this, we achieve that, so we are kind of in that, you know, have that overarching principle, like it's a great goal to work towards, but there's some small action steps, which I think we try to accomplish by breaking down into some of the action steps, is that there actually are some deliverables that we can then check off and use those metrics moving forward. I guess with that, I turn over to Chris to kind of start leading out with the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, and kind of go from there as kind of develop the next part in the process. The next part, the steps for this would be, once we kind of get this part done, I'll bring it to City Council, just so the City Council at a workshop's aware of kind of what the EDA is working on. You know, kind of say, here's what the EDA has kind of worked as, you know, what they're want to work on for the next 2 years, just to see if they have any feedback on the plan, and then from there we'll start actually, you know, checking some of these boxes off that are on the list here and what's in the plan.
President Winnick and members, good evening. I do want to just briefly touch base on number 7. If you look on page 5 of the work plan, page 9 of the agenda, this did come up at the last meeting where we talked a little bit about the small area plans, and I know Commissioner Finneman's been working on those for several years now and has some really good ideas and some visions. I don't know specifically what you want to put in there. There's some blanks that we want to maybe talk about tonight, just briefly before we get into the SWOT analysis. And maybe just before the meeting, Dan and I talked briefly, and one of the things we thought about is just to maintain those plans, to make them available when somebody comes forward and has an idea or looking at a specific area that we've already done some analysis on. We can certainly share those, and that is an action step that we can do right away. To actually implement it would be something completely different. If you'd like to go down that road, we certainly want to talk about that. What does that look like? And not setting the EDA up for something that you can't deliver on would be really important. So we want to make sure that if we do have an action step in the deliverable, that we can accomplish those things in the next 18 months. So looking for ideas and input and suggestions on that item number 7, if anybody has any ideas.
Do we have like an inventory of plans already marked that we could put on a website, do anything like that?
Well, you do have, yes, everything that I have delivered to this body and through Parrish and Dan, you have them on your own
Yeah,
It's
we-
digital and it's here.
Yep.
Some you may not wish to, be
Mhm.
public with, some you may wish to be public with. The intent has always been on my part to have it discussed, and we were just never getting around to that.
Do
So,
we want to kind of maybe try to put those all together and as a group decide which ones we want to bring forward if maybe we don't want them all up there?
Yeah, here's the I mean, it's quite a big list that we have. So you can see there's quite a few. I think some of these are duplicates, but I think it's approximately, I'd say 16 to 20. Does that sound about right, Mark?
sure, the ones I brought here.
Yeah, I think some of them were kind of duplicates. We kind of assemble these in different package materials, so I think some of them could be doubles, but, we do maintain these here, so if somebody calls in and is looking for something specific or has an idea, we can kind of, we'd be happy to bring these forward and say, here's kind of a plan.
Well, maybe if a point there been, maybe we do go through and pick the top 3 and kind of focus on those. Not to put the rest of them on the shelf, so to speak, but I don't know if that's something you're.
I'm just happy to have conversations about them, because
Mhm.
some are very wrong, some challenging, some choose to be very wrong, and some choose to try and show something that's in the future. So I think they need to be gleaned here first, and then some can be public as much as you want to make it. Some are probably on properties that have other things happening. Some are on properties that other things will be happening. So,
Excuse me.
I'm just happy to see them somehow in the conversation, because that's why I drew in the first place. So I have others that I have not brought here because I didn't think they were doing anything but sitting, so.
So maybe before the next meeting, all the commissioners could get that electronically so that we can review them and then have a good discussion on it, which
What-
ones to bring forward. I think probably more than 3.
Yeah, whatever that number.
So
whatever
you
that
want
number
them
is.
sent to us and then we'll look at them individually and kind of
Yeah, and then.
try to figure, will we be able to
Well,
make,
yeah, I think you will. I mean,
Okay.
as long as it comes back through this group again to see how everybody feels about it, but there's a variety of intentions with each one, so.
Are those written out in the, if we open up that PDF, are your notes in there of,
Is
No,
one-
just the concept
just the
drawings.
drawings?
Yeah, they look like that.
And some fit into the inventory idea and
It's
the
got the-
vacancies and
It's
the
got the
office park
address on
notion.
it, right?
So they fit into a lot of different categories that'll come up independently.
Mark, are the addresses on all of them, so that we have an idea of,
My version of address is Headwater East.
well, that is.
They're usually pretty easy to figure
Oh,
out.
okay.
With the side streets here, you might, and I have all these on a Dropbox account, so I'll just email out the link to the group, and then they're all there. You can just go in there and access them as needed.
So do you want us to prioritize some? What do you want us to do then?
Well, I think, if we individually can look at them, each one for a few minutes, there may be some questions on them. Or, like you say, you'd be able to kind of prioritize which ones seem to be a more natural fit for the community and attainable, so that we can go ahead and promote those. We might be able to just break them into an A and a B, not a good, better, best, but, these are the ones we really want to promote, and the other ones, park for a while or something like that, something. But I think each one of us looking at them separately, by the time we come back here for a meeting, we'll have a much more productive meeting than just looking at them cold.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and some are private properties that will be discussed over time. I like the idea of the inventories we're gonna try and take about what happens on vacant land or things like that, how you transition to redevelopment. All of those things will show up in different categories as we talk about them, I think.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
Okay, that sounds good. That gives us some direction. All right, let's jump into the SWOT analysis. How many of you have actually done a SWOT analysis in the past? Mostly everybody. Okay. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And a lot of times people will use this type of analysis to help them kind of fine tune and find where you're at right now. I like to use it for this process for economic development to to look at an asset-based economic development plan. And what I mean by that is, in my opinion, economic development is never about what you don't have, it's always about what you do have. And how do you take what you have and make it better? And so I like to use this process and put them on a chart like this, and we'll actually talk about this and throw out ideas. But from my perspective, it's a process that will help us kind of fine tune our plan to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities or potentially challenges that we should be addressing going forward. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start talking about some strengths. What is it that makes Forest Lake unique as it relates to economic development,
Are you broadly speaking here?
broadly speaking?
Wow, okay.
So some of the strengths, what is it that you would think should be on this list?
I think just the business experience of the EDA members and our relationships with other business owners and members of the community, and our participation in other community organizations for networking.
Okay.
Our location, proximity to the freeway and infrastructure.
So maybe, Sam, just expand on that a little bit. You've got a significant number of transportation corridors with 35, 61, 97, Highway 8. The connectivity, the transportation corridors might be something.
Yep. I didn't know you want to write all that down.
Okay, these are good. What else?
I'd say our size in relation to surrounding communities makes us,
The size of the community?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it still, in a way, has that small town fit, but it's a large enough city where you've got the sophistication and you're close enough to the metro area where you can still feel like you're part of a regional center.
Well, and we're not competing with another 20,000
Yeah.
city
Exactly.
5 miles away. I mean,
Exactly.
we're the
You're unique.
kind of the hub of
Yep.
the surrounding area.
The potential of the regional core. More or less, let's call it retail, because that seems to be the driving core.
So regional core.
The potential of it.
Okay. Yeah, this is good. What else?
The variety of housing opportunities from, we go from low income to the trendier lighthouse lofts. We've got Arbor Ridge, we've got one-level condos going up, and then for the higher end, we've got a lot in the $300,000-$400,000 custom home range
Yeah.
and lake homes. So we've,
Yeah.
for executives moving in the area,
Yeah.
the full workforce,
The
we
full
can,
gamut.
we can do housing.
Yeah, that's good. What else?
Availability of open land.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, you have a very unique situation where you've got large parcels of land, undeveloped land that's 30 minutes from downtown. You can't find that many parts of the Twin Cities area, so it's a nice strength.
The
Got the
potential of, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The airport?
The airport, yeah.
The potential of regional recreation and events.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's really important. So the amenities. If down the road a ways we're trying to attract talent, to retain talent, you've got the amenities that young families potentially would be looking at to raise a family here, to buy a home here, to invest in business here. So the amenities are really important. I might add natural resources, because I know you
Sure.
talked about lakes. I know you probably can't read my writing, but I will make this clear when I print it out. So. What else? This is a good list. What are the strengths? What is it that makes Forest Lake unique? And not just any town in USA.
Our opportunities for playing, I mean, there's golf and lake and whatever.
Pardon?
There's lots of amenities as far as
Yeah.
just to play here.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if we
Yeah, still close to a major metropolitan center, so,
Yeah.
you know, you might think of even as a growing city might be considered a strength because you've got that potential future talent pipeline that businesses are gonna be looking for, so.
We are surrounded by strength as well. 20 minutes, 25 minutes away, we reach all the way to the river.
Yep.
There's a host of enterprises between us and those different 25-minute distances that really are Forest Lake strengths,
Yeah,
even though not within the city.
that's a good point.
I think that ties a lot back to the amenities that you guys have within Erie too, and the time through all those and year-round amenities, so like your snow skiing,
Yeah,
look at all the
exactly.
stuff you got just east of here,
Yeah.
tubing, snow skiing,
Yep.
cross-country skiing, then obviously we got all kinds of things for the summer too.
Yeah.
And when you're out west, say like Maple Grove area, you're traveling
Yeah.
to
That's a
go
good
to
point.
some of that stuff that people desire.
5
They
o'clock
don't
on a
realize
Tuesday
how close
afternoon, you can be on the slopes, on the water, on the trails, you've got it all right here in your backyard.
Back to your lakes, you know, when you look at the 7-county metro, obviously Forest Lake's one of those premier lakes. You know, you compare it to White Bear Lake, Prior Lake, Tonka,
Yep.
maybe Big Marine. Other than that,
Yep.
Waconia, maybe, you know, other than that, those are your premier lakes.
Yep, you're absolutely right, those are really important strengths.
Well-educated population.
Yeah. Can I be so bold as to put great schools?
And getting greater, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be really important from a talent perspective. Companies will decide where to locate based upon the availability of talent going forward. And my philosophy has always been, it doesn't matter how much work there is if there's no one there to do the work. So to be able to be competitive going forward in an international competition for talent, we've got to make sure that we can continuously supply good quality education and students for the jobs in the future. Not only for the companies that are here today, but the ones that we're going to be attracting and bringing into the area going forward. So these are all really good.
So I think you could add to that education one, the choice, school choice.
Yeah.
Because we
Yep.
do have a lot of options.
That's a good point. Very good point.
Other one, as much as we kind of look at our downtown and a little not excited about it, there's the opportunity of a great downtown. A lot of towns are trying to create downtowns, and we
Yeah.
have one.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You've got a really vibrant downtown in comparison with some of the surrounding communities. Look at Wyoming, just up the road, for example, where they don't really have a thriving downtown. You should be proud. You've got a downtown that has a lot of vibrancy and a lot of character. And so I like that idea. That's a really good, important strength. Yeah, these are really good. What else should be on that list?
We actually have a lot of properties in transition. So the potential of redevelopment is there.
Yeah. Redevelopment opportunities, that's a really important one. What else? What are we missing on the list? Anything you can think of?
Well, I don't know how to, and if it relates to something else, but, you know, we have consumers that are willing to spend money, you know, I mean, talking to some of the new businesses that opened up, you know, PetSmart, other things, I mean, they were excited to come here because, you know, in their studies, you know, there is a lot of spending power that
Yeah,
is.
so the consumer base, not only from the city alone, but from the surrounding area, you do have people that shop here from the Chisago Lakes area, from the North Branch area, Lino Lakes area, you know, maybe over in as far as Ham Lake, some of those areas. This is a larger geographic area from a consumer's perspective than you might realize, and that would be really interesting to expand on that and see how that looks. Maybe update that study that we talked about. But I like that idea. That is a real important strength. So consumer spending base.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The hospitality draw here is, I think, pretty good for the size of community we are. It in fact will be the catalyst to other hospitality draws.
Okay.
That wasn't meant to talk about hotels as such, but, you know, restaurants.
Yeah, the restaurants, yeah, for sure. Even, you know, some of the sporting opportunities with the hockey and soccer and those types of things, they bring a lot of people to town.
And
That's
medical
good.
facilities,
Pardon?
medical facilities?
Yeah, I actually would almost put that as an opportunity because I think it could be better. So you can certainly add it here if you'd like to, but I would like to talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
during opportunities as well, so. We're running out of room here, so let's jump to weaknesses. Feel free to throw out some ideas. What are some of the weaknesses, both internal and external?
I think transportation corridors is one of our primary weaknesses, and that our access to the major highways, 35, are very limited, and our ability to really move property is very dependent on that sort of thing. So we are very limited relative to that. It's mostly 35 that causes most chagrin, and I'm not sure that we didn't talk about how we alter that. So efforts going toward altering that story would be grand. Somewhere within our community, not all the way down in
Yeah, that's a good point.
Grand Lakes.
Yeah, good point. What else? What else is a weakness?
Lack of good jobs, job opportunities in the community.
So that might almost be an opportunity as well. So, and it's okay if these fit in more than one category, but how do you want to word that out? I'll let you.
Well, if you're bringing in families and they're two income producers, one comes for a job at Polaris, where does the other one work?
Yeah. Could I say limited?
Sure.
Job opportunities. Now, just to clarify, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody couldn't come in and find a $10 an hour job working at McDonald's, but we're talking more along the lines of living wage jobs where you can raise a family and you know, buy a home here. Yeah, am I looking at that right?
Yep.
Is that- okay.
We are, what's the word for a community where everybody goes away?
Bedroom community?
No, I mean where everybody goes to work elsewhere.
Bedroom community.
There we go, that's the word I was looking for,
Bedroom
bedroom
community.
community,
I
yes.
think that's one of our strengths and one of our weaknesses, is that we're close to the metropolitan area for all the benefits of that, but then it's a weakness because it's close enough to commute to
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
work.
and we need to, you know, create the magnets that make this more of a occupational and an employment opportunity.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to that because I think you're onto something there for the opportunity section. That's a good point.
I would say, you know, retail land. We keep talking redevelopment, but, you know, where do you build a strip mall? Where do you build, you know, some larger things?
Yeah.
I think we've been a little weak on vision and where we could be as a city,
That's a good one.
and being open to, I don't know, bigger and better ideas.
So, from a larger perspective, maybe better planning, maybe better visioning, where you've got a cohesive, single vision for the community, not necessarily driven by the developers, but being driven by the city. So instead of reacting, is that kind of where you're going, Judy?
Yeah, that's, yeah, who do we wanna be?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Very good. That could fit in the opportunities as well. Is it good?
Perception.
Perception?
Of Forest Lake.
Great one, Blake.
Sometimes reality, sometimes not.
Yeah, so too far, too difficult to work with, those types of things. That does, you know, that, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. There might even be a component to that has to do with branding, because if you're not telling your story, somebody else is. And the question is it the right story? Are they getting it right? And they may not be. So maybe add with perception to branding.
I think there's a limit on our business types. We tend to be that retail core. We have services, but we don't have much in terms of manufacturing and industry relative to other cities who are a comparable size.
Yeah, very good. a good list. What else?
Well, the next one is opportunities, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Should we jump to opportunities? And we can
Well,
always come
just-
back if you think of something. List or feel free to write that down, okay, we'll add it. Opportunities. All right, going forward, what are the opportunities? Let's put the challenges behind us and look forward to the future. What is it that you think should be on this list?
There's gotta be a way for a line of communication between the EDA, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. That single vision idea, that's a great opportunity.
And we could include the schools with that too, don't you think?
Yeah, that's what,
Okay,
yeah, improve our school system.
okay. Okay, what else?
We have nucleus items. We have like flaws, nucleus piece, needing and wanting to be more and stronger. The value in that in terms of events and drawing people and having a real draw from the outside, if only one step larger. So an opportunity is to think of what we have that are the nucleus beginnings. Downtown is another one, but downtown has to have a whole new approach to how you go about downtown. But the flies is a specific one.
So give me 3 words, Mark, that sum that up.
Strengthen our nucleus athletic facility.
Just to expand on that right now, I know a few communities are doing citywide surveys or monthly survey or whatever. That's a shared survey between the school district and the city on athletic facilities within the communities, because they either don't have enough or some sports are sharing some stuff just to make things fit, but then they also aren't that efficient between school facilities and city facilities. So to kind of bring everything together comprehensive, they're doing a combined survey between school districts.
I think they're starting to perceive that you can actually get quite a revenue producer out of all of that.
Big time
And
wanna
so
get those weekend tournaments.
that's why I gotta think of these things as revenue producers as well as event potential.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw out, talking with the school system, but post-secondary, some type of
Higher ed.
higher ed, some kind of college, some kind of, whether it's a technical college, university, is something that,
Post-secondary, huh?
you know, there's a lot of kids driving from Wisconsin, from
Yeah.
up north,
Yeah.
going right past Forest Lake,
Yep.
let alone our kids here, that, you know, there could be some campus built that would help that and stay right here in town.
Yep, that's very good. Think about some of the things we've talked about, maybe with some of the strengths. I know we've talked about large parcels. What is it that, I know in our plan, we talked about looking at some of those large parcels and maybe identifying areas for new business parks. Is that something that should be on this list?
Yeah, the variety of business opportunities that would go into the industrial manufacturing and others, just, if you spread the abilities of this city more, we are truly some service and mostly retail at this point in time.
Okay. I might also even suggest that it doesn't have to be large businesses. I think you've got a lot of home-based businesses and smaller businesses here in the community that could expand. And we should always keep them on our radar as well. A lot of small businesses here.
Well, if we really took hold of the open to business storyline
Yeah.
and jumped on it hard
Yeah.
in a very strategic way, we could accomplish a whole lot of connections that are
Yeah.
necessary.
That's a great idea. What else?
But I've gotten a complaint from people looking to move to the area that we do not have an emergency room. I don't know how that would,
Should that be over here?
but it's an opportunity.
It is an opportunity, yeah. So,
Well,
Gets
every
back to
weakness is
something
an
you said.
opportunity.
Yeah.
so maybe from a business perspective, we've got the ability for more medical type businesses here in the community.
I think I always thought that would be a growth out of what happens up in Wyoming, but it hasn't come down here as strong as we had hoped. And then Hugo builds a fairly strong clinic and immediate health proposition there. And so we're sort of in between those stories. And I think we could have an opportunity to really grow that opportunity.
Yeah,
How about a new freeway exit as an opportunity?
sure.
Oh, if only.
Mark, I think I heard you say the downtown too, right? Did you?
Well, the downtown, you know, it's got a big impediment, and there's a variety of things that are the impediment, but it also has the greatest opportunity.
Yeah.
Because when it reaches some kind of personality downtown,
Yeah.
we will have something.
Yeah, I honestly already think you do. I think the downtown is really cool when it comes to character. You've got that sense of place. You're right on the lake. You've got some really new, nice developments happening downtown. I love that from a development opportunity.
And we have a
perspective.
place to grow it going south if we really worked at that.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So maybe the opportunity to grow the downtown further.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. What else?
I would say the, being able to work with our neighboring communities is an opportunity. You know, continuing dialogue and coordinating.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else?
I want to throw one more on the weakness. Our state representatives, our whole, from Forest Lake, we don't have a lot of legislative leverage. We're not getting much back. And we need to, as a city, be able to have our voice heard more at the state level.
Would you consider that a weakness?
I think it's a weakness right now.
Okay. Could call it state representation?
Yeah,
Legislative representation?
perfect, yeah.
And the leverage that you need to get something done.
Make sure that's not sure this is erasable.
Ah, here we go. It wipes out.
Any other opportunities? We can come back to it. All right, and the last one we're gonna do is.
You know, I think that we need to add on the bottom that we've got the opportunity to really expand on our natural resources that we have here. Because I think just, we've got a lot to offer, and I think the potential is huge.
So, would you also suggest promotion and marketing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are some unused
Destined.
nature areas that are tremendous that haven't been really utilized or developed.
Yeah, these are good. Okay. All right, what about threats? These are maybe things that are external that you need to keep an eye on. These are challenges that we want to be watching and addressing as we move forward. Maybe some of them can be included in our plan that we're going to overcome and deal with them head on. What are the threats?
Legislative funding that, from the state level, relative to schools. We seem to be treated uniquely in that story.
Yeah. Yeah, especially as it relates to transportation, right?
Yep.
It's a big issue.
And I don't know if the Met Council can be talked about as if there's anything that's going to change, but, you know, they're an impediment.
The Met Council?
Yeah.
Is that a threat or is it a weakness or?
It's, I wish it were an opportunity to reconcile with, but it's more of a threat because we're, you know, we don't have the leverage that the mayor talked about.
Okay. What else?
This isn't specific to Forest Lake, I don't think, but threats, online shopping versus brick and mortar, and what's gonna happen to the storefronts.
Yeah, I do think that is a threat to
Is
Forest
that-
Lake, not uniquely, but it
Right.
is a threat. doesn't surprise me, you know, we keep seeing these announcements that Herberger is closing and Sears and Kmart, you know, what's next? You know, it's not good.
Well, that just popped something in my head, maybe more of a weakness, but, you know, broadband coverage, internet coverage, cellular coverage in our entire community is less than desirable.
Weakness?
Yeah, I would consider it a weakness.
Okay. Okay, good.
I don't know if this would be a threat, but what our surrounding communities do, like the asphalt plant that might go in, which will affect Forest Lake, but we have really no say in that.
Yeah, that does kind of tie to what the mayor was saying about working with other communities, and also I'd suggest to the vision and coordination, just to have those conversations about what you want to look like and where you want to go and where those things might or might not fit, just working with your neighbors. Is that a threat, Jenny? You think that should be up here, or where do you?
As a realtor, it's a threat. I don't know. I don't know.
What do you think?
I think it's a threat.
It impacts our quality of life.
How can I word that? Could I say neighboring community land use, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Can I make a suggestion?
Bureaucracy,
Well, possibly.
delays,
Yeah. How do you wanna, whether just?
Well, that's, I'm always thinking about development delays and that kind of thing because of bureaucracy.
Okay. What about Wisconsin?
What about what?
Wisconsin. I actually had a business that contacted me about a year ago that was considering Forest Lake or Osceola. And they chose Osceola because the property taxes were about half of what they were in Minnesota, and incentives were better in Wisconsin. So to me, I would consider Wisconsin a threat.
I suppose it goes for the,
Competitiveness?
Yeah.
Competitiveness, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one. Their taxes are half?
For commercial, yep, not for residential. And there's not.
Is it
much
just
you can-
because they're not valued as much over there?
No, it's
or-
just the way they classify properties over there. If you're a commercial business, the real estate taxes are about half of what they are in Minnesota.
Because I thought residential taxes were actually
They are higher.
higher than,
Yep,
I suppose
but
that
the businesses get a
one has to
over there,
balance
it's just
out
the
the other.
opposite. Yeah. And the other thing about Wisconsin is that they don't have, if you're a commercial property tax payer now, about 30% of your property tax goes to the state of Minnesota. They don't have that in Wisconsin, it's just local.
Okay, well,
How about the lack of shovel-ready sites? If a company, let's say, I'll throw out Rosenbauer or Polaris, was interested in expanding in Wyoming, they might have enough land available. What if Team Vantage came to you right now and said, I want to expand, do you have land that you could put them and move pretty quickly? Is that a threat, that other communities might have that land and we might not be far enough along?
I don't think we're as ready because the number of amounts of land that we have that is shovel-ready is not very large without utility connections and otherwise.
So if somebody said, I need 10 acres or 20 acres, could you do it? Quickly?
You'll be studying that shortly.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Is that something that should be up there? And it's a competitiveness.
Yeah, it
I
is.
think it's the
shovel-ready sites.
shovel-ready sites. Oops. I'll limit it on here. What else?
I don't know if you wanna put taxes on that, I guess that goes with competitiveness, but.
Let's see, I wouldn't suggest that your taxes are not competitive unless we're competing with Wisconsin for a business.
Well, but yeah, but I'm, looking at more of a bigger picture, I mean, if that really is, I never realized there was that big a difference, but that should be something we go back to our legislatures going,
Yeah. Yeah.
we gotta
So,
have something.
to that point, some cities like Taylor's Falls, for example, has worked with the state legislature to create a border city development zone program, and that's available on the western side of the state. When I was with Chisago County, we added Taylor's Falls to the eastern side. That's the only city on the eastern side of Minnesota that has border cities development zone incentives. And what it does is it basically takes the state's portion off the property tax for a limited period of time, just to make sure that businesses start on a level playing field. So that might be something to look into.
So Chris, have you, with since being with Washington County, obviously it's the whole county's bordered there, is that something that you guys have tried to work?
We have not tried it for Wisconsin, with Washington County, Wisconsin yet, but I'm open to the suggestion if you think it would be something worth approaching. And if nothing else, let's have the dialogue. We think that, I think that Wisconsin has a competitive advantage. Now, the one thing that I think we can beat them on is talent. I think if the further you get away from those population centers, the harder it is to attract talent to fill those jobs. So you're in a better position from that perspective, but they do have a competitive advantage when it comes to property taxes for commercial and industrial uses.
This is more of a question than anything else. I think the county example pays attention to us. We are on the very north edge. Is it a weakness to be sitting where we are geographically?
I think it goes back to the perception. I don't think so, because you're close enough to the major metropolitan population centers, but you're far enough north where people can just get away from that congestion and the headaches. I don't know, Mark. In my opinion, it's not a real serious threat.
Okay.
Especially because you can have those large parcels available 30 minutes from downtown. That's pretty rare. You have to get over into almost Waconia, or probably even quite a bit further up into Dayton and Rogers to find large parcels that are that close to downtown. And I'd say we're closer. So maybe down into Farmington on the south. I don't know, Ryan, you may have some experience with large parcels being available that are.
Kind of mirrors a lot of the projects we're competing with, Project Pepper, Farmington.
Yeah.
I think one more like we just started the new senior transportation bus.
Yeah.
But, we've got the county putting things in, we've got senior housing, but, we're lacking some of the, basic other amenities. I don't know if it's really a threat, but I mean, we can't do that on our own.
Would you maybe look at that as a weakness and an opportunity?
Yeah, probably more of I guess I'd like to call it a weakness that we don't have it now, but it might be more to look at it as an opportunity to.
So would you say limited housing, or how do you?
Well, I just, limited transportation, or, some of those other amenities that, bigger cities have that people have come to expect, whether it's bike share programs or,
Yep.
Uber, or, what might be available that we're very limited out here on.
In a way, I think I like what you're saying, because it actually, to me, talks about the availability of that pipeline of talent going forward. Those are the types of things that the younger generations might be looking for that we may not have right now. So I can see that as a weakness, and maybe also as an opportunity.
So is maybe a threat, we're so far from a regional airport, or the main airport. I think of it on a huge area, right? And just, I've always wondered why the north hasn't grown faster north, as things have grown up 94, things have grown south on 35, and obviously to the Wisconsin border at Woodbury, right?
Yeah.
What's driving that? Is it because the distribution, railroad, or freeway access is so much better to go somewhere that's, they have the obviously going east you have Madison, west you have Fargo, south you have a booming economy down Iowa. Going north, is there that lack of stuff to go north, and that's why?
I struggle with that as well. I think, to me, it's perception again. I don't think that we're on the radar screen of a lot of the site selectors or developers that are looking for that next big opportunity. I think we're starting to gain some momentum, and to me, that might be an opportunity that we talk about promotion and marketing. We want the developers and the site selectors to know that we've got land available, we've got opportunities for new development to happen here. So I think it's perception. I still struggle with that. I mean, we, on the East Metro side, which we are considered East Metro by site selectors, we're between two major markets, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Chicago. If you go west, there isn't much in North or South Dakota. So to me, I think that we're getting passed over because we haven't done a very good job, historically speaking, marketing and promoting our area, letting folks know that we've got land available, if that makes sense.
I think that's
So-
spot on.
The transportation corridors have been the driving force, forgive the pun, of those other directions you talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, do you think, as far as we've been fairly aggressive, I think, for our size of city, economic development things, where do you feel we fit in as far as these a strength of ours, and a weakness, compared to what your experience is?
Well, coming from
Because that's a
Chisago County.
threat, because it's a
Yeah,
threat, because
it
other
is.
people are doing it, you know,
It is, yeah.
Stillwater's doing it, Whitebear's doing it.
Yep. To a certain degree, but I think there is opportunities here, but I don't think you've been doing this long enough to actually get to some of those opportunities where, I mean, we're starting to talk about that right now with this work plan. This is so important, because now it gives us something to get our arms around and say, okay, in the next 18 months, here are the 3 or 5 or 7 things that we're gonna undertake these things, and we can get to that point in time. But some of the communities, Chisago County, for example, has been doing economic development with their cities for 15 years, 20 years now. So we're just getting started here in the county. And I think we can get there. But from a threat perspective, they do have shovel-ready sites. North Branch, believe it or not, has about 300 acres of land that could be sold tomorrow, and you could put a business in 30 to 60 days if they wanted to move that quickly.
They really have the utility connections?
Yeah, they're shovel-ready sites, and they're big chunks. We can get there, but it's gonna take some time. And you gotta digest that there is some risk that goes into it. You gotta feel comfortable taking on some risk, or maybe working with the private sector, whatever that looks like. But that's why this plan is so important, because we're starting to develop that process. What is it that we could do to be competitive? Because I do want to make sure that if one of our existing companies here wants to grow, they don't have to move to North Branch to do that. I want them to stay here at Forest Lake.
One of our weaknesses might be that we seem to historically fear risk.
And not that that's bad. I mean, there are some cities that are sitting on a lot of debt, that went out and bought the land, and bought infrastructure, and put the infrastructure in place. And, you know, Forest Lake's in a good place because you don't have that debt right now. So, I mean, you gotta kind of weigh that and make sure it makes sense.
I guess under the threats or development delays, bureaucracy, can you add the watershed district in there as well?
Yep, I sure can. Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. This is really good. This is a good list. Did we miss anything that you want to add up there? Anyone? All right. So, what Dan and I will do then is we'll take these and summarize them and put them in a challenges and opportunities section in the plan, and just make sure, we'll probably go over this one more time, do you think, Dan, as a final draft?
Finalize it next meeting, and then it'll be, you know, we'll start working on getting some of those boxes checked off and start getting a plan in place and start executing on some of the deliverables that are in there.
Does this feel like we're making the right progress here? Is this the direction that the EDA really wants to go in? Do we have the things in here that you really want to do? It's a good plan. I think it's coming together quite nicely. I like it. But I want to make sure that your thoughts and ideas are captured as well. Did we miss anything?
Well, I like it. I guess a question I'll pose to you, but how is this gonna flow in with Washington County? I mean, we're gonna be
Yeah,
depending
that's a
on the
great
county
question.
a lot for.
Yep, thank you for asking. And I would be very pleased to have the opportunity to work with you to start implementing these things. And I think a lot of the things in here we've already talked about that we will come to the table as a partner, both financially and technical assistance. So if I could, roll up my sleeves and help you implement these things, I think that'd be great. And I think with your input, going back to the county board and asking for funding and to make sure that what we're asking for is going to be meaningful to the city of Forest Lake, that would be really good to know. So your feedback to myself, to Commissioner Muron, would be really important, and we just want to make sure that we can partner with you going forward. This is exactly what we're trying to do. At the end of the day, if we can increase the market values for commercial industrial properties here and make sure that our residents aren't having to drive to downtown 5 times a week and have good paying jobs for our kids and grandkids, that's our goal. That's what we want to have happen. I think the EDA and the county could work together very closely to make that happen. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, Chris, I think you just covered or do you have any other updates?
I don't. No. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, I seen Washington County is one of the richest counties that was rated again.
Third highest per capita in the state. So it is a fairly well-to-do county, although we do have some
Yeah,
pockets
about
of poverty as well. So
35th or something overall in the country, I think.
Could
or
be.
something it was, something like that.
Yeah.
So. Surprised me anyway, but
Yep.
any other questions for Chris? Any other discussion, or I'll look for a motion to adjourn?
I just have the quick development update.
Yeah.
For the EDA. So, just kind of listening back, it seems like the EDA's had some requests just to kind of for an awareness as to what's going on from a development perspective in Forest Lake. So last week I had talked to Donovan and kind of asked him for kind of a summary of, this is working here, just a summary of kind of the projects that have either been approved by council or now in the ground, getting built around town, kind of in the pipeline through planning commission, projects that have come through and are kind of at the point where they're public. So we did draft a summary sheet, which I handed out to all the members here this evening. Basically right now we do have 3 multifamily sites that are currently under construction. We have Lighthouse Lofts up here in the north end of town, and then there's 2 over by Menards. Both of these are currently in the ground for constructions. There's Timber Ridge and Gateway Green. Timber Ridge, if you remember Arbor Ridge, which is over by St. Peter's, Timber Ridge is a mirror image of that, just in a different site location. Both those are actually active construction right now, with anticipation of completion in summer of 19. So next year we'll have a lot more units coming online. We also have, with Chestnut Creek, there's been talk about a phase 2 coming in for Chestnut Creek, which phase 1 is getting filled out. There's a lot of activity out there, so if you haven't been through Chestnut Creek recently, drive out there. There's quite a few homes that have gone up in that development.
It's gonna be like 400 altogether?
I think it was 220 lots initially, and then phase 2 was, I can't remember.
Chestnut Creek,
Yeah.
Was it
222
222
total.
total?
Total? Okay.
That was split between 2 phases, right? I think they're looking at starting up with phase 2. We have, just in the single-family home building activity, so through May, we have 20 new homes that have been started. Last year, we issued a total of 50 homes, so we're on track with, again, another big year for full home construction in Forest Lake. And, past years, when I first started, those numbers were a lot lower than that, so we're seeing a lot of building activity for new home construction. Commercial that's currently under construction, as if you look out over there, you see Hampton Credit Union. They broke ground, so they're actively building right now. There's also Headwaters Landing, which was the land exchange that council recently approved. That's a multifamily unit, market rate that's going in down there, as well as a townhome that'll be kind of surrounding that area, which is just right across from the licensing center down at Headwaters. There's also Third Lake Estates, which is up here on Irish Avenue. That is a 10-lot subdivision, which is on the Planning Commission this Wednesday for approval. We also have Leela is coming in for a campus and gymnasium performance art space expansion. Headwaters 11th. I've actually lost track. Ryan, where is Headwaters? That's like
Right there.
right here. So February 11th, will be coming in with another 11 lots. Menards is looking at their warehouse expansion, and then Southwest June Middle School is doing, or junior high is doing some building improvements there.
A lot of site improvements too.
Yep, at Southwest, and then we have Cornerstone Plaza, which is gonna break ground here relatively soon. So we do have quite a bit of development and building activity. And the nice thing is, you can kind of see, it is kind of spread all throughout the city, where it's not necessarily just in one pocket. We do kind of a nice blend. When I was making the map this afternoon, it was kind of nice to see where it's all kind of focused throughout the entire community, not just in one section. So I kind of conversation with Donovan, I'd like to kind of keep bringing these updates forward, just so that everybody can kind of be aware as to where, you know, projects are, what's coming down the pipeline, just because I think, you know, as you guys go out in the community, you'll know kind of what projects are coming up, what stages are, the projects are in. Lighthouse Lofts is still, they're hoping to be open this summer, get people in there this summer yet, so.
Chevrolet dealership will be moving forward with a pretty nice expansion.
Oh, yeah. Anything else that I missed, Ryan? Because I know it's going through that, and it's like, just kind of like, you work on so many different things, we try to pull as much as we could, but anything else that you remember?
That's all the active ones.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff in the hopper, asking questions, gathering information, studying some stuff.
In line with that, we had talked about marrying together with the county and taking like the Herrick property and the surrounding properties and doing that assessment and evaluation. There's another property we'd like to find consideration with that as well. Maybe it does fit the same storyline. And that's the property from 97 and 61, MnDOT going north past the city-owned property that's there. I've drawn a concept plan there that at least gets the conversation going. If that can fit the same category and become something that we can talk about in terms of that same assessment, I think that's a pretty vital piece of property that has many owners, not many, but enough owners, to start to try and coordinate a series of thoughts towards some sort of development potential there. And I think if we did just what we're gonna do on the Herrick and other properties around there, we'd have a great assessment of what could happen there. So I don't know if that's something we need to push forward in terms of an optional site to be looked at. How do we initiate something like that, Chris? We initiated the Herrick property, did we not, or have we not?
We have not, no. In fact, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the EDA was going to have Ryan put together a proposal. What could we do for 10,000? What could we do for 20,000? Does that ring a bell? And I don't think anything, as far as I know, has ever been formalized yet. Am I wrong, Brian?
You're correct.
So it becomes very formal then. I mean, I guess I'm used to simpler approaches, boilerplate issues, don't have to solve the delineation of the wetlands. We'll take what we've got, we can do a concept plan and then try and throw the numbers that would be lineal footage for A, B, and C and stuff, and that's like a starting point before you get into the $10,000, $20,000 assessment.
Well, with the site, I just think there's just not certainty of what's wanted there. We've done a number of stuff on the actual roadway, Forest Road.
Yeah.
I mean, even laid out storm sewer, because that's been discussed so many times in the past. And I have very detailed estimates of everything along Forest Road. Now the other stuff, it's what size lots do you want, you know, that's gonna vary from whoever you ask to really what level you're trying to get, and that's where the gap's not been closed yet, so.
Do you begin by pulling in the ownership and really having a good roundtable?
And might be a potential sale, so that was another thing that's kind of in the discussion. And then if you look in just the city's archives, there's a handful of concepts right there that were gone through meetings in the past already too. So there's a lot of stuff there already, and it's more what really is somebody want to finalize, right?
What tips that forward then, so that we can do this thing we're talking about?
Decision makers.
So
The
just,
landowners?
I can do anything you guys want, right? But really to what level, or what are you trying to attract? Or you got certain size lots in mind, or certain users? Or is it straight zoning code? I mean, utilities is easy, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this location. You already got stuff stubbed to this site.
just as a reminder, the county does have funding available, and it's a grant funding to the city for these types of feasibility studies or concept studies or a wetland delineation or something like that, where we've got two pools of money. We can fund up to $10,000 with a 20% match, or we'll go up to $40,000 with a 1-to-1 match. And we do have resources available currently to help. So if the EDA decided that we wanted to take on a project like that, or a couple projects, we do have resources to help. Essentially what would happen is your city engineer would do the work, and we would work with you to fund that work, whatever you decide to do.
I guess the question I would pose, and you'd know the answer way better, I think, than anybody else, but, you know, these site selectors, what are they looking for? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think concept plans for, at that point, are relevant. I mean, for somebody looking to build something, a concept plan, yeah, but, you know, if they probably already have the building laid out, it's just a piece of land for it. So
Yeah.
how do we get in touch to that point?
That's a good question. I think what we're missing out on, honestly, is that we're not far enough along with some of the site selectors that are working with clients that are ready to build. If we had some ideas of what the costs were, at least we could know if it's feasible or not. So my recommendation would be to say, like, let's take the Herrick property or something similar. And, you know, if Ryan could say, okay, the cost to develop that property, whatever you decide to do, you know, 5 or 10 acre parcels, whatever the case might be, 100-foot lots, it doesn't matter, is $2 a square foot. We know that at $2 a square foot, we could sell those lots all day long. If it gets up to $6 a square foot, probably not. So I think just to know the cost of getting the infrastructure to the sites and get the streets in, to say that we could sell parcels for $2 a square foot, that's kind of what we're looking for. And then if you decide to go further and maybe some kind of a partnership with the landowners to say, okay, we'll dive down and maybe do those plans and specs, so we know that when a company comes forward and is ready to build, we could be building roads simultaneously, and then you figure out how do you pay for those roads? Is it through an assessment? Do you issue bonds, and then the property is assessed and the assessments make the bond payments? So we can kind of work through those details, but we're kind of starting from the ground level, saying, is it even feasible? You know, do you think we could sell land down there for $2 a square foot, or, you know, is it already at $6 and we're not in the market? So I think that would be a good starting point to direct Ryan to maybe come back with a proposal to the EDA for consideration, and then ask the county through a grant application to help fund it.
And I think if you wait for users to come to the table, you have a big schism in between. A concept plan really just sets a matrix, talks about the site forces, the things that are back there, and maybe gives you a density, maybe gives you an idea of what the forces are. It's good to start there and understand what you can offer someone, because when they do come to town, they also start from a position of not understanding what they can have. So I'd put that property I just mentioned somehow on the table here to be considered for looking at it for the same way you'd look at the Herrick property. Because to get that started, you really have to take these ownerships and get some kind of dialogue going. And once you got the dialogue going, you got to build it around some kind of idea. Well, we've drawn, right or wrong, an idea is drawn that talks about some kind of usage.
Yeah.
And so it tells you what property is there and what you can really work with it. And that'll open up the door to knowing what your inventory is, knowing what you can offer.
Yeah.
And that opens up the door to the user. And that's a much more efficient route to go than wait for somebody to tell you, I'm going to bring my franchise stereotypical building here.
Yeah, and it might turn out that you have different land uses for those two different sites as well. You might be looking
Absolutely.
at industrial for one and retail for the other one.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get to a kickoff point on either of these that will move forward someplace and say, now we're going to actually make that assessment and appraisal. And if that means it's a slow burn, fine, just as long as we're starting down a path.
So, so is that something that we need to make a recommendation to the city council to go forward on?
I
Is that-
think so. I think we have to initiate
Dan,
it.
you can weigh in.
Well, you have budget that could be used for the grant work, you know, I mean, you know, basically, if you have a parcel that comes forward, so like the 9761, this parcel here that Mark was referencing, I mean, there is a lot of, you know, with Mindado in the corner, there's a lot of different ownership challenges here that didn't exist on the Herrick site. Herrick was just a couple ownerships, and that was a little bit easier. We had a willing partner there to kind of start there as kind of like, this is a lower hanging fruit in terms of the two. This one also kind of, when it came forward, was wide open in terms of use, like could it be, you know, retail, could it be light industrial, could it be, you know, there wasn't anything to kind of pin down, so it's kind of like, you don't really know what you're designing to. Not that, you know, here a little larger parcel, I mean, but they both could get to that next step where, like Chris said, if these are selling, because the main thing is, you have somebody comes in, if they're selling for $1.25 a square foot, but utilities are $2.25 to get brought in, you price yourself out of the market, and then you have a developer that doesn't really wanna take that initiative to start putting their resources into something if they don't, if the utility costs are gonna blow them out of the water. So we're trying to at least say, we ballpark utility costs at 75 cents a square foot, which still puts us in a competitive position for development to come forward. But we can look here, I mean, this plan too, if you looked at what was drawn, I mean, there's a lot more ownership up here that had, different challenges in terms of designing the whole site, so it's kind of, I'm not saying it's not able to be brought to the table. I think this one is a little bit probably easier to get the focus just going on initially. This one, has probably just a few more just challenges that are there. My recommendation for a first one would probably be one that's already been kind of studied in a little bit larger parcels, because it kind of fits in, if we're looking at trying to develop larger parcels, kind of on that asset, we kind of have one right here that could be, try and get some experience in that, and then maybe move to the more challenging one, but that's just a thought on how we could move with it.
Question to give us some more leverage on, say, the Herrick property or whatnot, but tax increment financing or any of those tools. I mean, they're ag land right now, not producing anything. So if they did become commercial, obviously there'd be a significant amount of revenue.
Yeah.
The school, the county's portion of taxes, can that be tipped as well, to
Yes.
come back to that land?
Yeah, but you want to be careful to not start the district until you have a business ready to go in there, because the clock starts ticking
at
day
that
one.
point.
So if you can do the pre-development work and have a business that says, yep, I'm ready to go in there, then you create the district and potentially.
Well, yeah,
use
and
to-
that's
to
where I
do
mean,
that.
like pre-planning,
Yeah.
to have those
I think
blocks in
between
place.
potentially, is this in Excel's territory?
I think,
Airports excel, so.
Yeah, this
So-
is Excel.
So potentially between the city, the utility provider, and the county, we could do those studies right now. You just gotta direct Ryan to give us a proposal to say, what is it that we think we could use to take to that next level? I wouldn't say go to plans and specs just quite yet, but at least let's make sure it makes sense.
Mhm.
I'd certainly like to see us, I'm not trying to win one over the
No,
other.
it's
I'd
fine.
like to see us just begin this process
Yeah.
to better understand it and see if the mechanism of doing this makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there might be an outcome that can be glorious on either side.
Yeah.
This is the best start we've had in a long time on this.
So just to clarify, you guys looking for a feasibility of infrastructure to serve this parcel, or you're looking for
think so.
development of that parcel at the time? I would think you're looking for the feasibility of infrastructure to serve that parcel.
I think so, just to get it started. And if we know that
Just-
we're in the $2 range or less,
Yeah.
okay, then we move to the next level.
So,
Back of the napkin calculation of.
well, that's historically, every time we've engaged with the Herrick property, the reason nothing's ever happened there is it's over $1 million to reconstruct Forest Road. And the conversation has died, because cities' assessment policy or development policy for say is the 100% of a new improved road is the responsibility of the developer.
Yeah.
And then we've also gone into the 70-30 assessment policy we had. Now it's down to 20-80, but there's no other property owner on the other side of this piece of gravel road, and then it keeps dying until somebody's gonna give or take something, and that really it's the cost of the road.
Yeah, to the mayor's point, that's the reason you create a tax increment district,
Yep.
because now that new development pays for that road.
So I think some other things to think about, that's why we're stagnant in the development and waiting for developers to happen, is we haven't done any extensions of trunk line, sewer and water. Cheap projects, because you're out digging in the middle of nowhere, right? Last one we did was in 2004, where we extended the sewer down the south side of 202nd and County Road 50, which boom, the next year we got Hawthorne Heights. That's the stuff that we've stopped doing. And we've tried working with financing to make sure that development fees are being reserved for those specific projects and not
Yeah,
bleeding into some of the, per se, user rates.
yeah, that makes sense.
Because if we had sewer and water available down Fenway and 190th right now, you don't think something would have already happened? That's where you talk about your North Branch examples. That's exactly what they did. Centerville did it. Maple Grove, obviously, down in Plymouth does it.
Yeah.
Woodbury.
So our airport industrial, we do not have utilities there other than storm and,
Airport where? By 206 fenced in by the athletic fields?
yeah, but
That's all utility.
that's all utility.
It ends by Leela's building, right?
To the south?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have dead-end stubs of water main going down all the dead-end streets, and then even up the way west side of Headwaters 11th now. So basically that cutoff is as far as your sewer, or your water goes.
so maybe that would be a good project, is just recommend some,
Just some
Extension
scope of
projects.
Extension of projects, and you would have a cost, in that, you would know your permits, you would know wetland impacts, stuff like that, that's all identified, and then you would know your costs, and you could estimate developments on how even fees can pay that back, even if you bonded short term.
Yeah.
But knowing development come, you're gonna generate this money within your given set rates now, which would pay back that bond. Maybe you supplement it sometime with some reserves, good years you don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Just-
what they
just-
do.
Just to start out with a high level, you know, is it even feasible would be important. And
We
in my
know-
opinion, you should never start out with how much it's gonna cost. The question is, what should we do? Is there an opportunity here that we're missing? Could we take $40,000 and leverage it into $10 million of a new building? That's kind of what we wanna think about.
Mhm. It's real good input.
So.
Or another thing, you know, what we're holding up, obviously, is if we need to make that connection between Hawthorne Heights and that existing lift station just west of Chestnut Creek. If we just came in and made that connection, all of a sudden now, all that land to the north up to 97, Harrow can develop, because we now have the sewer capacity.
But that has to go through private
Through
land,
private
right?
property. Maybe we can get that pipe put in through an easement, and
Mhm.
then they can still hold on to their land until they wanna develop at the price they're willing to sell it at.
That's a great idea.
But that's holding up a lot of development. I know those developers would love to go, and we've had a number of conversations with the property owner to the north that knows they can't do anything until a sewer connection is made.
Mhm.
So that stimulates housing and maybe
Which then
just,
gets me more trips per day, which then will appease MinDOT so we can do some intersection improvements at Harrow, right?
Yeah,
And I should point out that these pre-development funds are not intended for residential, it's only for commercial and industrial.
Mhm.
Have some commercial interests along 97 that need sewer service.
Gotta be creative, right? No, we do wanna help, and so if you decide on a project or a couple of projects, just feel free to let us know that you're interested, and we've got money available.
so we're gonna move toward a decision, maybe not now, but at one of our next meetings to either kick off the Herrick property and talk about it, or at least move forward in this process of marrying together with what you're offering. That
I
makes
think
some
they're two
sense.
different things. I mean, they both kind of come together, but, you know, putting this package together encompasses the whole city. I mean, the Herrick property, I think it's gonna take a little more cooperation with them to, you know, really dial something in. But I like, you know, what you had to say, Ryan, about, let's get a list of, you know, potential investments in some infrastructure that we can then maybe prioritize which ones are gonna be the best.
And if you think about that other property that I've been mentioning, it really could come down to 3 property owners. And you don't have to deal with more than that if you don't wish to. So maybe that makes that idea simpler. And maybe the cost of the infrastructure of roadways like Forest Road, you know, throws at us, doesn't exist there. So maybe rises up in terms of the.
That $1 million for Forest Road would be all the way to 202nd Street?
It would, so right, you can see where the curb stops, right at that intersection, 202nd, a little bit farther, a little bit to the north.
Mhm.
So where that curb exists, there's a full road section there. We would just
Right.
need to come back and connect into that and continue northward.
I'm just wondering whatever goes in there, if they would, you know, I guess you probably would need to do the whole thing, but with the airport on the other part of it, you know, how much traffic is actually going to continue on? Because that is, you know, $1 million, I mean, how long are we gonna take to get a payback on that? If we have to invest, you know, 500, 600, 700,000 into getting that done?
You gotta be cautious too with moving on a Forest Road improvement, because the sanitary sewer line right below that road is the Met Council, and that needs some work. Actually, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be dealt with on the Met Council's line within Forest Lake. They're making improvements working northward, just some real schedule and when they'd be in this area, so. Anytime we do something, we do coordinate with them to see if anything's been updated with them, but
Mhm.
there's some work there because originally was that built in the early sixties?
Is that how they work? They just moving from core to north is?
Trying to, because a lot of it deals with capacity issues.
Okay.
So as they're working from the south going north, they're upsizing the pipe.
Okay.
I wish someday I wish I could say this, someday we have another plant, maybe in the south end of Hugo, that really would serve Hugo, Centerville, Columbus, and Forest Lake. Because at some point in time, when everybody's built out, the plant that it all goes down to St. Paul is not gonna sustain all the users. And they talk about this in their comp plans too, more of a water reuse system. Some stuff they do in California.
Don't they have a big, or put a good sized treatment over by Andover or somewhere over there? That isn't getting really used much, Ham Lake, East Bethel?
East Bethel has their own, so it's owned by the Met Council, it's treated and then re-injected into aquifers. But it
Okay.
obviously has to be treated at a higher level, more cost, but the costs offset the distance to get to somewhere where they would have to get down to Blaine
Sure.
from where they're at. But
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Any, can an outsider just ask one question?
Go right ahead.
How many of you have looked at Hugo's website for the city? On there, they have, a available land section, and they got like 10 parcels with the description, the zoning, and the pricing. And some of those are city-owned, some of those are privately owned. And that's something that if you look at, maybe that's something that could be put on the Forest Lake website to, because I think a lot of people search for things on a website. So for developers looking to do something on Forest Lake, they'll look to see how would they find it.
remember those email blasts that I forwarded you to?
Yeah.
How did that all get generated? So I don't know how I got on this list, but all these big lots, and it has everything about it, even what's around it, comes out and says this is available. Might have been in Maple Grove, Plymouth,
Sure.
Rogers. Somebody's doing this.
It's
So
Mincar,
that's
isn't it?
Mincar, yep, so it's the Minnesota Commercial Association of Realtors, and, members of Mincar can actually put that information out there, and then they email blast it out to everybody who's interested,
That's how we've been driving these
yes,
handouts.
Yeah.
So you get to the city, and the city then hands it out to us.
exactly.
So we've been seeing things like that, but it's not necessarily on the webpage or, it'd be nice, the more public it gets, the more awareness there is.
Yep.
I don't know what our abilities are to do anything like that.
So I want to be really careful, if it's city-owned property, I'm happy to put it out there, but I'm not a commercial realtor, so I shouldn't be advertising private properties. That's really up to the commercial realtors and licensed realtors to do that, but if it's city-owned, I would have no problem putting that out there right now, and you guys will be the contact for it, so.
But Mincar is both.
Yeah, but I want to make sure I'm not representing private property owners, because I don't have a real estate license.
Get your license.
That's what Jenny's for.
Okay, thanks for all of this.
Yeah, thank you.
Do yet.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.